Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. We're excited to welcome you to Fall Fiction, Newish, and Upcoming Books at the Rio Rancho Public Library. My name is Kathy Campbell, and I'm a librarian at the Loma, Colorado Main Library. Right now, all participants' microphones are muted, so if you want to ask a question, please type it into the chat box. This session will be recorded and available on the library website with closed captioning in the near future. Just some reminders, we'll be talking about a lot of new books today, which may or may not be in our database yet. Once they are, you can put a hold on them. If you need help, you can always call the reference desk. Our main goal is to let you know about some good books coming out this fall, and we're also going to include a few older ones which have fall themes. The presenters today are Tracy and myself. We're both adult services librarians at Loma, Colorado. Most of the books we'll be talking about today are being published between July and November of this year. And now we'll begin with Tracy's first book.
When no one is watching, there is something strange going on in Sydney's Brooklyn neighborhood. The gentrification is clear, and the company that wants to take over the land is known, but the disappearances of locals and the new neighbors acting suspiciously keep Sydney tense. Can Sydney trust Theo, one of the new people? Alyssa Cole has twists and turns in this story that keep a reader turning pages and cheering Sydney on. The older women characters add some humor in this edge-of-your-seat tale.
The first book I chose to talk about is The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. I chose it because it fits in with the fall Halloween theme. In 1982, Carly's Aunt Viv disappeared from a job she was working as the night clerk at the Sundown Motel in Fell, New York. She was never seen again. In 2017, Carly decides to find out what happened and ends up working the very same job at the same motel on the same shift. Her first night there, she encounters ghosts, and she keeps encountering them every night. Eventually, she begins to unravel what happened to her aunt. The story is told from the perspective of each woman 35 years apart. These are not your typical ghosts where you're not quite sure if you really saw them. There's nothing subtle or hidden about the ghosts in this story. They're in your face right from the beginning.
The Thursday Murder Club is a debut novel by television writer Osman. In a quiet retirement village in Kent, England, 4 unlikely friends meet weekly to discuss unsolved crimes, usually with a glass of wine. But when a brutal murder takes place on their very doorstep, the Thursday Murder Club find themselves in the middle of their first live case, befriending a local rookie police officer. There is sadness, philosophy, and much humor in this story that I hope the author continues.
My next book is Ghosts of Harvard by Francesca Saratella. Keeping with our ghost theme, Katie arrives at Harvard her freshman year, desperate to find out why her paranoid schizophrenic brother had committed suicide while he was there the year before. On campus, Katie begins hearing voices seemingly belonging to ghosts from long ago. She's not sure if the voices are real or if maybe she's going down the same path of mental illness that her brother was. All she knows is that these ghosts are leading her to answers about her brother.
Night Portrait features 2 time periods and 1 portrait, Lady with an Ermine by Leonardo da Vinci. In 1940s Poland, the painting affects 1 German woman and 1 man, an American artist and soldier, as they both try to protect it when it is taken from its Polish owners by the Nazis during World War II. The alternate story is about the 15th century Florentine sitter for the portrait and Leonardo himself.
The River by Peter Heller is a slightly older book. It was published in March of 2019, but I'm including it because it fits with our fall theme in that it takes place during a fall semester of college when two boys take a semester off from school to canoe down a river in northern Canada. On this trip, they find that they're in the path of a fast-moving wildfire, and they also encounter a man on the river who they think may have killed the woman he was with when they passed him earlier. This book is very well written, with Heller describing the outdoor settings with words that make you feel like you're there, and the friendship between the two boys is beautifully expressed with understated actions and dialogue. This book is a masterpiece of literature with an ending you won't soon forget.
Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman is a prequel to Practical Magic and the Rules of Magic. In this title, Hoffman reveals how the Owens women came to be cursed. The story begins with the story of Maria, who is found by Hannah Owens after being abandoned in a snowy field in rural England. Maria learns about the unnamed arts. The basic tenets include always love someone who will love you back, and what you send out into the world you will receive back threefold. After Maria meets John Haythorne, she follows him when he goes back to Salem, Massachusetts. However, things in Salem are not what she hopes.
He Started It by Samantha Downing is an interesting story about three grown siblings going on a road trip together to recreate a trip they took with their grandfather 20 years earlier. This time, their grandfather's ashes are in a box in the back of the car. His will stipulates that they are to take this same road trip, visit the same places, stay in the same motels, and scatter his ashes at the end of it. The road trip starts in Georgia and ends in California, which is a long time to be with your siblings when you haven't all been together in years. If they can stick it out, they'll each inherit $1 million. This book is unpredictable with lots of twists and turns and a wild ending to their trip.
To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. During a routine survey mission on an uncolonized planet, Kira finds an alien relic. At first she's delighted, but her elation turns to terror when first contact isn't at all what she imagined. As war erupts among the stars, Kira is launched into an odyssey of discovery and literal transformation. This is an 878-page book, so give yourself plenty of time to settle in and read. You won't be able to put it down.
We Are All the Same in the Dark by Julia Heberlin came out in August. When a mute, one-eyed girl is found on the side of a road in a small Texas town, it leads to buried secrets. This is the same town where a girl disappeared 10 years earlier, and people are still looking for her. The town's youngest cop, Odette Tucker, has ties to the 10-year-old disappearance of her friend, and now this newest discovery calls to her as well. She's determined to solve both cases.
And Now She's Gone. Grayson Sykes works for a detective agency and is assigned to find a missing woman, Isabel Lincoln. Even though Lincoln's lover hired them, he seems more worried about his dog that he claims Isabel has stolen than about Isabel herself. The more Grayson digs, the more secrets are exposed and her investigation becomes more dangerous.
Ruth Ware's latest book is One by One. She's one of my favorite authors, and I just started reading it. It's definitely a page turner. In it, a group of co-workers goes to a remote off-site retreat at a mountain chalet. The issue to be discussed is whether to accept a buyout, and the shareholders are not in agreement about this. Millions of dollars are at stake. Once there, an avalanche cuts off all access from the outside world. At that point, survival becomes more important than togetherness, and no one is sure who to trust. The story is told in alternating points of view. I can't wait to see how this book turns out.
Digging Up the Remains by Julia Henry is the third book in the Cozy Garden Squad mysteries, which we have on audiobook. A festive fall is in full swing in the small town of Goosebush, Massachusetts. Between hosting a haunted house on her lawn, serving on the town's 400th anniversary planning committee, and prepping for the fall festival's 10K fundraiser, Lily's hands are full. But when a Snoopy reporter is killed, it's up to Lily Jane and her garden squad to weed out the killer. My favorite quote is, "He contributes nothing but his opinion to the town."
The Darkest Evening by Anne Cleves is number 9 in the Vera Stanhope Mysteries. In case you're unfamiliar with the books or the TV series, Vera is a middle-aged, overweight, disheveled British detective. In this book, Vera comes upon a car that slid off the road during a snowstorm, and in the back is a toddler strapped in. Vera takes the child and drives on to the nearest house, a mansion where there's a party in full swing and a woman lying dead outside in the snow. This mansion happens to be the place where Vera's father grew up. Now, with everyone trapped in the house, Vera tries to find answers to the mystery, and in the process learns about her family's complicated past.
Simmer Down is a contemporary romance. Nikki DeMarco moves to Hawaii to help her mother take care of her terminally ill dad. When he passes away, she stays to help her mother with the food truck business. Proper food etiquette requires not encroaching on another truck's spot. Enter gorgeous Brit Callum James and his brother Finn. A turf war begins, but Nikki and Callum have a hard time resisting their fierce attraction. Whoever loses the annual food festival will see their spot and move to another location. Will a business rivalry end their romance?
In The Searcher by Tana French, Cal Hooper has retired from his job as a detective and moved to a remote little town in Western Ireland. This town plays as much into the plot as any of the characters. It's suspicious and mistrusting of any outsiders. Cal decides to stay in spite of the unwelcoming reception that he gets. Soon he's approached by a boy telling him his brother has disappeared and none of the law enforcement officials in town seem to want to help him. Cal agrees to help even though he knows it will make him even less popular with the locals, since he may be digging into things they would just as soon keep hidden. Something's wrong in this community, and Cal is determined to find out what it is.
The Cookbook Club is about 3 women from different walks of life who find friendship when they need it most. Trista Walker leaves her position as an attorney to open a pub restaurant. And in a fun way to test recipes, she sends out an invitation for a cookbook club. Margot's husband has just left her, and cooking is a joy in her life that helps her cope with this sudden change. She decides to join the club. Aja is a pregnant yoga instructor who is having trouble telling the baby's father or his mother about her pregnancy. Food is a source for the soul as well as the body is extolled in this uplifting story.
The Book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult is coming out September 22nd. It starts out with a plane crash where a passenger's would-be last thoughts are not of her husband, but a man she last saw 15 years ago, Wyatt Armstrong. She survives the crash, but is now faced with a decision. Does she go home to her husband and daughter, or does she head straight for Egypt, where Wyatt is working on an archaeological site? The book is told in 2 separate projections, her old life and the life she might have with Wyatt. The book attempts to answer an important question. Do we make our own choices in life, or do our choices make us?
Head Wounds by Michael McGarity. McGarity is a New Mexican author and former law enforcement officer whose mysteries and historical novels take you all around New Mexico. Doña Anya, County Sheriff Detective Clayton Isti, catches bizarre late-night double homicide at a Las Cruces hotel. Clayton, son of retired police chief Kevin Kearney, finds himself working with an undercover federal DEA agent who resurfaces and recruits Clayton for a dangerous mission to seize the Mexican drug lord responsible for the killings. Thrust into the nightmare world of borderland drug wars and corrupt cops, Clayton duels with a cunning assassin.
In Confessions on the 745 by Lisa Unger, Selena Murphy is commuting from work one day when the train stalls and stops. While waiting for it to resume, she strikes up a conversation with the woman next to her, and they each reveal personal things to the other. The stranger tells Selena she's having an affair with her boss, which prompts Selena to say she believes her nanny's having an affair with her husband. Several days later, the nanny disappears. From there, Selena's life starts to unravel. She's left wondering who the stranger really was and what she did. Everyone in the story has secrets, and no one's life is as good as it looks from the outside.
Written in the Stars. Astrologer Elle and actuary Darcy go on a blind date at the urging of Brendan, Darcy's well-intentioned brother. It is a disastrous date, and to complicate matters, Elle and Brendan are now business associates. To stop her brother from his matchmaking, Darcy asks Elle to have a fake romance for a couple months. Is true romance written in the stars? There is humor throughout, and the characters are likable with real problems to overcome in this lesbian romantic comedy.
Don't Look for Me by Wendy Walker is the story of a woman who's either walked away of her own accord or gone missing under more sinister circumstances, depending on who you talk to. Her car was found abandoned miles away from her home with a note at a nearby hotel. The family is left behind to cope with guilt, blame, and grief. What has happened to Molly Clark? This is a fast-paced novel with unexpected twists and turns.
Miss Benson's Beetle is an uplifting but melancholy novel about two women on a life-changing adventure, looking for an insect that may or may not exist, the golden beetle of New Caledonia. It is 1950, and Marjorie Benson, a school teacher living alone, is just trying to get through life. One day she reaches her breaking point, abandoning her job and deciding to leave England. When she advertises for an assistant to accompany her, the woman she ends up with is the last person she had in mind. The two form a partnership that eases the sadness of their individual lives, partly brought on by the two world wars. Ms. Joyce is the author of The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, if her name sounds familiar.
The Invisible Girl by Lisa Jewell is full of flawed, misunderstood characters. The story is dark, intense, and creepy. A 17-year-old girl goes missing, and everyone is blaming Owen, the 33-year-old single male who was let go from his teaching job because of sexual misconduct. Across the street from Owen lives the Forrest family, with the dad being a psychologist who has treated the 17-year-old girl. Lives are linked and everyone has secrets, but maybe not the ones you expected them to be. It's told from 3 points of view and from 3 different timelines.
Poppy Redfern and the Fatal Flyers is book 2 of the Women of World War II mysteries. Poppy has taken a job with the Crown Film Unit, and her first assignment is to interview the woman of the Air Transport Auxiliary. Within a few days, 2 female pilots have fatal accidents, and Poppy and her American fighter pilot friend Griff believe the deaths are not accidents. The home front for women is presented with rich historical detail, but do read Poppy Redfern and the Midnight Murders first.
Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline is the sequel to Ready Player 1, which was made into a movie. On first impression, you may think this series is aimed at teenagers, but the story lends itself to adults as well. Ready Player 1 was nominated in the 2018 Great American Read, which was a group of the 100 most loved books of all time in America. It takes place in a dystopian future where living conditions are so bad that most of the time everyone lives virtually in a reality video game utopia. Ready Player 2 comes out in November, and no one really knows what it will be about, except that it will have the same characters as Ready Player 1 and will feature life in a virtual reality.
These next 2 books are winter holiday titles. Home for the Holidays is about 3 sisters living in different states who come together at the invitation of their Aunt Sassy. Each sister is facing a major decision or challenge, and unexpected things happen during their visit. It is an uplifting story about recovering, reconnecting with loved ones, and taking a stress relief break. Christmas at the Island Hotel is a warm-hearted tale of siblings Finton and Flora Mackenzie, who live on a fictional island of Muir off the coast of Scotland. Finton has inherited a hotel from his recently deceased American spouse, and Flora just became a mother and is unsure of motherhood. Meanwhile, a young Norwegian playboy aristocrat is exiled there by his father and told to grow up and try working for a living. A Syrian refugee doctor and a father of 2 and a rather wild chef all find their way to Muir. The story is serious and fun and a great place to visit from home.
The Sentinel comes out in October, and it's number 25 of the Jack Reacher series. I've listened to every one of them on audiobook. This one is about Jack Reacher arriving in a small town outside of Nashville and helping out a man who's about to be ambushed by 4 other men. The ambush is part of some sort of conspiracy and cover-up going on in the town, and Reacher, as usual, will get to the bottom of it. When I first started listening to the Jack Reacher series, I got used to Dick Hill being the voice of Jack Reacher. A couple of books back, Hill retired and Scott Brick took over as Jack Reacher. I thought this would be a big adjustment, but it turns out Scott Brick is a very believable Jack Reacher. Now Lee Child himself is getting ready to retire, so he's bringing in his brother to take over the series. The Sentinel is a team effort by the 2 of them, but Andrew will soon take over totally. In reality, the 2 brothers' last name is Grant. Lee Grant uses the pseudonym of Lee Child, and he told Andrew that he'd have to take the last name of Child in order to be the author of this series, so he'll be known as Andrew Child. Everyone's waiting to see what changes will come to the series as the result of a new author.
These next 3 books are nonfiction titles by popular novelists. The first 2 are poetry and the last is a memoir. How to Fly in 10,000 Easy Lessons is Barbara Kingsolver's second poetry collection, offering reflections on the practical, the spiritual, and the wild. Dearly, New Poems is Atwood's first collection of poetry in over a decade, and the publisher says she addresses themes such as love, loss, nature, the passage of time, and zombies. This Time Next Year We'll Be Laughing is by Jacqueline Winspear. Winspear is the author of the popular Maisie Dobbs historical mystery series. Author Anne Lamont says her writing is elegant, lovely, and welcoming.
That concludes our presentation. Contact information is on your screen. If you want to discuss anything about any of these books, the Ask a Librarian email address comes directly to me. Also, one of our other adult services librarians will be hosting a King Arthur program on Monday, September 28th at 1 o'clock, and you can sign up for that on our website. I see that there are no questions, so I'll bid you farewell, and I hope to see you in the library.
Happy reading, everyone.